She's a star on the U.S. women's national soccer team. Her jersey repeatedly sells out.
You see, despite all the wins, I'm still paid less than men who do the same job that I do.
Megan Rapinoe shined a spotlight this week on the inequities women still face. Plus, behind the reporting, journalist Ronan Farrow details some of the allegations in his interview with a woman accusing Governor Andrew Cuomo of serious allegations. And I'll talk to ABC News' new deputy political director on how daily political coverage is shaped.
What matters this week with Lauren Maloney.
And we thank you so much for being here this Sunday. I'm Lauren Maloney. We start with President Biden's first news conference on Thursday, some 65 days into office. Before taking a question, Biden announced he was setting a new goal of having 200 million vaccine doses administered during his first 100 days in office. There were several questions about the situation at the southern border. He said the focus should be on why migrant children are fleeing their home countries to begin with, because of earthquakes, floods, a lack of food, and gang violence.
So what we're doing now is attempting to rebuild the system that can accommodate what is happening today. And I'd like to think it's because I'm a nice guy, but it's not. It's because of what's happened every year. Let me say one other thing on this. If you take a look at the number of people who are coming, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people coming to the border and crossing are being sent back.
Earlier in the week, President Biden tapped Vice President Kamala Harris to lead the effort to tackle the migration challenge at the U.S. southern border. This week in the Vermont legislature, discussions on boosting unemployment benefits had business leaders voicing their concerns. Meanwhile, a plan to address the state's historically underfunded pension system had union leaders speaking out too. State House reporter Devin Bates with more.
At this point, we're hoping that everyone could be back to a semi-normal life and working in their workplace and hopefully not be on unemployment anymore.
The Lake Champlain Chamber believes boosting state unemployment benefits at this stage of the pandemic could ultimately delay economic recovery because it provides incentive for people to remain out of the workforce. The proposal to increase weekly benefits by 20%, combined with existing federal and state benefits, could have Vermonters taking in more on unemployment than they would with a job that pays $24 an hour.
We don't believe any of these people are bad-intentioned people. We consider this to be smart math.
The Senate Economic Development Committee is well aware of business leaders' concerns and has had conversations about returning to the usual requirement that unemployed Vermonters need to be searching for jobs while they're collecting aid.
Somebody is offered a job and turns it down, they could lose their unemployment benefits entirely.
Meanwhile, the Vermont House has put forward a plan to address years-long challenges facing Vermont's state employee and teacher pension systems. Unfunded liabilities in the system are projected to increase by over $600 million between state employees and teachers next year. The plan put forward by the House would have the state pitching in $150 million, but it would also cost teachers about $309 million.
This is coming in a year when our teachers have put themselves at risk, have gone to work every day to meet the needs of the children and youth of the state. And their thank you is being told that they have to work longer, they have to pay more, and they're going to get less in retirement.
For What Matters This Week, I'm Devin Bates.
One of the most powerful politicians in the country, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, finds himself in the middle of two serious investigations. The first is his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically in nursing homes. The other, 8 women are now accusing him of inappropriate behavior, allegations he has continuously denied. Well, new details were revealed this week. Journalist Ronan Farrow recently sat down for an exclusive interview with Governor Cuomo's first accuser, former aide Lindsey Boylan. Rich McHugh talked with Farrow this week.
Please lay out for us and our viewers the allegations that Ms. Boylan has come forward with.
So Lindsey Boylan really has helped to trigger a chain reaction that has now engulfed Albany politics and thrust Governor Cuomo's future into a whole lot of uncertainty. And that started with a series of tweets in which she said she had been sexually harassed for years when she worked as a deputy secretary in the New York state government and a special advisor to Cuomo. And, she didn't want to talk to journalists, Rich, when she came forward with those claims. And that left a lot of misinformation swirling around. It left her particularly, I think, vulnerable to efforts to discredit her. And it took her a long time to be persuaded that there could be a place in the conversation for some journalistic vetting. She has now done that with this story that we put out in the New Yorker. She talks about for example, an interaction where the governor had his dog come in and, he cracked a joke about wanting to mount her, she says. That was the word, quote unquote, mount. She talks about a really egregious, hostile workplace environment where people were teased a lot about their looks, about other personal things, where an aide was really relentlessly shamed for his weight.
You spoke to staffers inside the office who talk about meetings, about when her allegations first came out. They said, how are we going to deal with this? And they basically, I believe, they went and got her personnel records and decided to distribute those to reporters. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we're able to kind of, through this reporting, get inside the room and understand a little bit about what happened in Cuomo's team as Lindsey Boylan began to raise these allegations in December. They saw these tweets in real time. There's a kind of informal brain trust of Cuomo crisis communications advisors composed of both some current aides like Melissa DeRosa, who's one of his top aides, and Rich Azzopardi, who is his current communications director. And also some former advisors like Stephen M. Cohen. And, we named those individuals. We obviously reached out to those individuals during the reporting. And we're able to trace how they and a number of other Cuomo advisors responded, which is they flew into action. There was a series of frantic calls to decide what to do. And the decision was made to leak Lindsey Boylan's personnel files, which included alleged complaints that she had been bullying to coworkers, that she had in particular belittled several Black women in the workplace. And Lindsey Boylan responds to those claims in a head-on way in this article. And she doesn't deny that she may have mistreated people in the workplace. What she does say is that there was not ever a formal HR process that could have looked into those in an adequate way, that she alleges the governor gathered material like this informally in order to use it in this kind of weaponized context. But I do think, regardless of what one thinks of that conversation and the underlying claims about her, it's important to note that this is someone who raised a claim of sexual harassment. And from the jump, that was covered not on its own terms, but against the backdrop of these complaints about her.
Recently, in January, I believe, the Attorney General of New York, Tish James, released a report saying that the governor's administration had underreported COVID deaths in nursing homes by 50%. And since then, in that time, we've now come to where 8 women have come and accused him of sexual harassment and toxic workplace. Presiding over a toxic workplace. Where does this go from here? Is he going to remain in office, do you think?
It's clear that the political fortunes of the Cuomo administration have changed radically, as you suggested. It's clear that it's a precarious moment for him. And it's clear that a lot will ride on the outcome of now 2 probes that are ongoing, one by the state assembly, and one by the New York State Attorney General, Tish James. And we'll see what additional information comes to light.
Ronan Farrow and Rich McHugh, thank you. The House Oversight Committee is debating legislation that would make Washington, D.C. the 51st state. Democrats support the move as Republicans accuse them of seeking statehood for political gain. Joe Khalil explains the whole debate.